Okay, the robot lady says the meeting is being recorded. I'm going to take her word for it. We are on with Congressman Frank Lucas. Thanks so much for doing this. Welcome to my little world of Zoom. How are things going there? You're in Oklahoma City today, I think.
Actually, I'm in the nation's capital as we speak. We have votes this afternoon. We're underway.
Wow.
And I will tell you, this place is famous for being a political swamp, but right now the humidity is running through the roof. The temperature's up, so it literally is a swamp outside as I walk back and forth from the apartment to the nation's capital.
My understanding, if I remember my history correctly, is it was a swamp,
literally. Oh, quite literally. And they had yellow fever problems 200 years ago until they drained a bunch of the marshes up and down the Potomac. And the reason it was picked was, of course, in the world before trains and airplanes, you needed to be close enough to the capital to a port so seagoing ships could come in, the transportation system of the day.
And so you could get back and forth to, Philly and the big cities. Mm-hmm. And it was water transportation was the primary mode there. Hey, always great to talk to you, and a lot of ground to cover today. I wanted to start with a couple things, and I know you've been working on STEM education, especially in rural Oklahoma, for a while. And I think there's some developments recently, yes?
Absolutely, Russell. And for those folks who think this might be a trivial matter, it's absolutely life and death economically for our rural communities, our education system, and for that matter, the future of the country. The Rural STEM Education Act is an effort to give teachers more resources and training in STEM, engage students in hands-on education within their communities, because there's science, technology, engineering, mathematics going on in every community, and an increased access to broadband. So this is an effort to make sure whether you live in the big town or out in the countryside or way out in the woods, you'll still have a chance to live up to your potential. And STEM is where job growth is going to be, not just for the next few years, but according to the Department of Labor and industry in America, for the future to come, STEM will be our opportunities.
So, I mean, case in point, we just saw the EV maker Canoe make a big announcement about, opening up this plant in Pryor. And those jobs are going to be, like, all of them are going to be STEM related. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people think STEM. Well, I have no plans on working in a research lab or working for NASA anymore. STEM touches every career path, right?
Every manufacturing business has computers. They have computer driven equipment, more and more robots to do precise stuff. Talk to a farmer who has the precision agriculture attachments where his tractor uses the satellite so he can put down seed or fertilizer or pest control exactly in the amount that's needed per acre, the equipment to judge the quality of crops, medicine. It is beyond belief. If you've not had an opportunity to be in a medical facility in Oklahoma or across the country for that matter in recent years, and I hope everyone's been healthy, and nonetheless, it is incredible, the technology there, and someone has to service it, someone has to operate it, someone has to maintain it, repair it. I mean, all of those sort of things. And these are the jobs, as my late mother would have said, a child of the Great Depression, these are clean jobs. These are clean jobs.
Don't have to get the fingers dirty.
And you don't have to sweat. So making sure everybody, all young people, have an opportunity to be able to live up to their potential. And it's not just that, but in our STEM efforts these days, making sure whether you live in rural America or you happen to be from a minority community or some area where potentially the opportunity just haven't existed before, helping you live up. Because this is how we compete with our international competitors. And yes, I'm alluding to our friends across the Pacific and using friends in a very loose way, the Chinese and the Chinese Communist Party. But it's how we compete because the rest of the world understands and is aggressively moving forward on these programs. I'm in favor of traditional education. I have a degree in agricultural economics from Oklahoma State. I can debate with you the inelasticity of the food demand on any given day for longer than you can stay awake. But STEM's where everybody who's willing to work hard has a potential to make a really good living and help move the country forward. So we're working hard on this.
Well, I often joke that, the first thing I see when I go to get my oil changed is somebody pulls out a computer. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
literally, there isn't a job anymore where you do not have to have at least some basic knowledge of this kind of stuff.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So, a more advanced knowledge might be helpful in certain cases, like if you come under a cyber attack or ransomware, and that has been a thing. In my life personally, in the city of Tulsa, we saw what happened to the Colonial Pipeline. We saw what happened to that, what was it, meat packing plant or whatever. This has been just a horrendous year for this stuff. It seems to be like there's a major uptick in all of this kind of activity. And I think I saw an email from your office a couple days ago where you're saying, look, it's time for us to start putting some people's feet in the fire here and start calling a spade a spade. Am I
Absolutely right.
characterizing what you're saying?
Absolutely right. We're dealing with a number of forces here that are threatening our ability to function, to survive. And when you shut down those packing plants, that's taking food off the shelf. That's taking food off your plate. When you shut down the ability of businesses to communicate, I can think of at least one Native American casino in the district that may well have been shut for 10 days because of ransomware. That's cash flow every day that affects a whole stream of people up and down the line. The Colonial Pipeline thing, a very efficient way of delivering refined fuel from our region of the country all the way up and down the East Coast to the far Northeast, shut down literally because they couldn't control their equipment anymore. So where's this coming from? I suspect in the briefings that I participate in, it's a combination of things. You have just traditional thieves, crooks, and criminals who have technological skills who figured out how to hold us all hostage for money and using the modern technology, being able to move those resources around. There's also an element here, Russell, of where there are other governments around the world who are directly or indirectly sponsoring some of this to harass us. And then there's even another element where potentially there are criminal forces who are being sheltered in countries who want to cause us grief. So the problem's not going away. We are in such an intertwined society, communications, technology, the finance systems. We can't step away from it. So what do we do? Well, that's a big part of why I've worked so hard in my position as ranking member on the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee, not just to push STEM forward, not just to get back to the moon and on to Mars, but to do things like fund the National Science Foundation and the grants and the basic research that are done to come up with ways to address this, enhancements in technology to prevent it, because these, as my late father would have said, these hooligans aren't going away and they're doing real damage. And it's a problem that has to be addressed. And in many times, it involves money and resources where private industry perhaps cannot afford to fix the problems all by themselves. We spend a lot of money in this country in the National Science Foundation on a variety of research efforts. And that's part of why on the committee we worked so hard this week to reauthorize the funding for the National Science Foundation for the next basically 10 years, actually double the research money over the next 5 years, trying to stay ahead of our competitors.
Do we fight back? Do we, if we are able to, I guess, prove, or our intelligence services say, look, this particular attack, that was Iran, or that was North Korea, or that was Russia. Do we shoot back? Do we go after their systems? Do we play tit for tat?
Let me answer that question carefully. I'm the senior Republican on Science, Space, and Technology. I'm not the ranking member, but I'm the senior member on Financial Services. I'm a long-term guy on the Ag Committee. So I'm not on all of the I Spy committees, the intelligence committees, the funding committees that fund those efforts. But it is my understanding that when it comes to international or government-sponsored cyber terror, however you want to describe it, it is a punch-for-punch battle. I can't give you any specifics. I don't sit in those meetings.
I doubt they just tell everybody what's going on with that kind of stuff.
Punch for punch. And remember, there are also private cybersecurity companies who you can hire to defend you too, and they go punch for punch. but sometimes the tools and resources are of such a magnitude, it takes something like an agency of the United States government to be able to throw the kind of punch we're talking about in response to a punch coming from an equally focused group around the world. You know, we've all, in your lifetime and mine, we were all impressed with and enamored and hopeful as the internet developed and the communication system developed and the free flow and the efficiency of commerce and all that. Then we do eat cheaper. We do live longer. We're better for all of this. But along with it comes the vulnerabilities. Life was different when you mailed your contract through the mail. Life was different when you waited for the check to come. I occasionally tell my staffers there was a time when you wrote a letter and you patiently waited a couple of weeks for a response. That's not the world and society we live in now. And we've just got to address that and move forward. Instant, whether you want to call it response or gratification, is where we are.
I sometimes tell, some of my younger friends, we didn't used to have phones in our pockets. And if you were out on the road and you had an emergency or something, you went searching for a payphone. And I can't tell you the last time I saw a payphone, right?
Exactly. Or a telephone credit card to use at a payphone. Yes. Yes.
So part of the vulnerability here is the vulnerability to our infrastructure. And I'm specifically thinking here about the electrical grid, about water systems, wastewater and sewage, and these systems are often very large and all interconnected. And we saw with Colonial Pipeline, and I had an expert at TU tell me, essentially there are computers that can actually turn things on and off, physically move, stuff.
Yes.
And these guys had control of those computers, and they did not do as much damage as they could have done. That is very concerning from a national security standpoint. Forget the economy, right?
Yes. And by the way, we should be very proud in Tulsa because TU is a leader in this field of research.
They are. They're yes, they're
they are leaders.
Yes.
So they're very important players in helping protect us. But yes, the capacity, if you turn off the electrical grid in the summertime when it's hot, or in the wintertime when it's cold, or all of these things, or even shutting down a packing plant that produces 25% of the processed beef in the United States, suddenly that reduction of supply causes an explosion in demand and prices go through the roof, and locking out many consumers who can't afford to dramatically change their month-to-month budget to live on, food-wise or in any sort of way. So yes, this is all real. Again, how you address that, does it involve, and our friends at TU would be a better discusser of this, but do you have to go to a system where critical infrastructure perhaps is not a part of the World Wide Web, but of some proprietary private network? Do you just simply require that certain industries, the critical elements may not be interconnected on the internet? I mean, there's just lots of things, and that's what the research community, both the National Science Foundation providing those grants and places like TU doing the basic research, and industry. We should also remember industry has a huge economic stake in addressing this issue, because when you shut down the ability to produce a product, to process meat, to pump gasoline or diesel down the line, you're ending the ability to make a profit on that. You're impacting the business model. So it's an economic issue with industry, just as it is a living expense, or in some cases life and death experience for us. And it's not just the foreign elements. Think about the super cold snap we had back at the beginning of this year that froze up the gas wells, froze up the electric windmills. And all of a sudden, when everybody really needed that heat, whether it was from the burner tip or the heating the electric element, it wasn't there. That should also be a reminder to us about the needs to be thoughtful and careful. And those are where programs like the research at the Department of Energy come in. By the way, the committee that I am the ranking member on, the Republican leader, we don't have jurisdiction over the military side of the Department of Energy. They do the atomic weapons and all that sort of stuff. We're the civilian side of the equation. Research on fusion reactors, improved fission reactors, carbon sequestration, that sort of stuff. But you have to have a dependable, stable supply, whatever's going on. When I was a kid, my grandmothers canned up everything imaginable. They all had a freezer. You remember those days, Russell? They had a half a hog or a quarter of a beef in the back. Most people don't live with a 90-day food supply on hand or 120 days. Most of us, and I can't speak for everybody, but most people, I suspect, live in that 7-day zone or 5-day zone, or the people who are dealing with economic challenges may be living a day at a time. And we can't let the supply be disrupted because they are hurt badly immediately.
So a couple other topics I want to touch on briefly. I know we're getting a little short on time, and we could have any one of these, we could sit here and talk for hours, but since we're kind of on the topic of infrastructure, there seems to be a couple of bills working their way through one of them that
growing by the day.
I think maybe we have a deal or maybe we don't. And then there's like part B, which is the part that the left part of the Democratic Party is pushing for, that may end up being a budget reconciliation thing down the road because they're not going to be able to get it through this. I don't know. It's a big old mess, but kind of where are you sitting? Do you think that there's hope that at least, part A, which is the deal that I think some of the senators have put together, you think it flies?
I believe, Russell, there will be a major infrastructure package. I think the primary focus will be highways, bridges, roads, seaports, airports, where it should be. There will be a huge battle over the incidental things that are stacked onto it. Things that perhaps we might not all define as making the road smoother or transportation.
As infrastructure.
As infrastructure, art in cities and sidewalk parks and all that sort of stuff, but there will be a bill. I also believe that it will ultimately, when the House does its work and the Senate completes all of their actions, I don't know that it will be a freestanding piece of legislation to go across the floor. I suspect that it will be part of a giant effort in October. And that's where that second element you were talking about, budget reconciliation, comes in, because that appears to be where the majority, and I'm the conscience of the body, I'm a ranking member, not a chairman, conscience of the body, that's where the majority will fund the federal government for the coming year, the entire budget. That's where if they have revenue increases, tax increases, that's where it will be in that budget reconciliation package. You may have the Defense Department reauthorization bill in there. You may well see our efforts at doubling basic research, the bill to reauthorize the National Science Foundation and the energy research programs at the Department may wind up being a part of that. But that'll probably be one giant package. The infrastructure bill will either be a vote 1, vote 2 kind of a thing, a part A and a part B, or it'll all be rolled into one vote. That I cannot tell this far in advance. But the administration and leadership in the majority are determined to get these bills done, and using reconciliation, which for our listeners' benefit goes back to 1974 when Congress passed a law to try and make it easier not to increase spending, Russell, but to cut spending. That's the irony here, to cut spending. So in the spirit of cutting spending, they said once a budget cycle, you could run a bill that would cut spending, and it would only have to pass by simple majority in the House and in the Senate. Well, we do everything in the House by simple majority, but in the Senate, unless and Harry Reid changed the judges, so it falls under a different category. All other legislation requires 60 votes to end cloture so that you can move forward. So you have to have a supermajority so that 51 people can pass the bill. But this one time to cut spending, it's an exception. So you'll see 27 cents worth of cuts and maybe $1,000 worth of increased spending, but we'll call it budget reconciliation. Don't expect me to get excited about voting for that. But I think that's where we're headed. And the highway bill will either be a core part or it'll be you vote for one and then you vote for the other. I don't think they figured it out yet.
I'm not sure they have either. I suspect it's going to get split out because, well, I don't know. I guess we'll wait.
There's no way to know. You've got 50 Republican senators and 50 Democrat senators. The vice president breaks the tie every morning and makes Mr. Schumer of New York the majority leader. In the House, once the special elections are over with, out of 435 people, Speaker Pelosi has a 5-seat majority. So if 4 don't agree with her, she's in a world of hurt.
Mhm.
So they're in control, but they're in control just barely.
Yeah, they don't have an overwhelming mandate, that's for sure. All right, another thing that is kind of concerning me right now, and it's, out of left field, so we're going to kind of
Okay.
switch gears here, is this Delta variant of the SARS-CoV-2 virus that is, we think, starting to spread very rapidly in the state of Oklahoma. I say we think because we don't know, because the state doesn't do any genomic testing. We have no idea what's out there. But based on the symptoms, the differing symptoms that are being reported, based on the troubling numbers of new cases that are starting to come through, I'm getting a little worried about the fall and the winter. What are your thoughts on this?
That's a legitimate worry, Russell. But the first step is everyone, and I've said this since December, as everyone has become eligible, and now virtually everybody over 12 is eligible, you've got to get vaccinated. You've got to be vaccinated, whether it is Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson. I've sat through the hearings, both public and private, on all 3 of those. I've been vaccinated with the Pfizer. Most of my relatives have had the Moderna. I recommend everybody get the shot, because if you're not vaccinated for the very basic COVID-19, then you're a walking petri dish to pick this other stuff up and share it. Now, I know people say, I'm tough, I don't have to worry about this. But what about all the other people out there who are old, infirm, sick, have health issues? Think about transplant patients who have weakened immune systems to address the transplant issues. Get your vaccination. And as we get into the end of the year, or perhaps early next year, and they come out with a second shot to address the variants, for goodness sakes, line up and get the second shot. I'm young enough that I don't remember the polio epidemics, but my parents described to me how frightening that was in the 40s and 50s.
Yep.
And my father said it seemed like the polio epidemics were getting bigger and bigger. Now, whether we had better communication and folks understood what was happening, or it was becoming more virulent, nonetheless, we brought that to a conclusion. Measles, mumps, rubella. I mean, who in their right mind would do anything outside without a tetanus shot? Lockjaw, remember that, Russell? That old phrase?
Absolutely.
Lockjaw?
Yeah.
Get your shots. People say, well, it hadn't been tested for 20 years. They dramatically exploded the size of the test groups on all these vaccines. Statistically, you don't have to wait 20 years if you have 20 times more people participating in the test. I've had it, get it, protect your neighbor, because this Delta issue, or Delta B, or someday Delta C, or Delta D, this is like the flu, Russell. COVID's with us now. It's not going away.
It is not.
And we have to protect ourselves. And if you don't care about yourself, care about your loved ones, your neighbors. You can do whatever you want to yourself, but don't kill your neighbors. I remind folks, there was 500,000 Americans who did not have a chance at a vaccination. They're gone.
I think we're at 600,000.
600 now, yes. Get your vaccination. Stop the number from growing. It may not be perfect. No vaccine's perfect. But
right.
If you're not vaccinated, somebody's in trouble.
No vaccine's perfect, but this is as close as we've gotten in a long, long time. And Dr. Bratzler made the point the other day that, that viruses only mutate if they're infecting someone. In other words, viruses don't mutate in the air or laying on the counter. They mutate inside the human body and then spread. And so if we are immunized and the virus is stopped from spreading, it will also be stopped from mutating. It is not that hard a concept to grasp. And yet we're still at what, 45% in the state of Oklahoma that are fully immunized. We're not doing well.
Exactly. And I've been screaming about this since January. I hope that we don't have to have a dramatic Delta outbreak and what would probably be a disproportionate number of casualties amongst younger Americans who are generally spared from the first COVID-19 epidemics for people to wake up. People shouldn't have to die before we do the responsible thing.
As they used to say where I grew up, you don't shut the barn door after the cow has gotten out. There's just no point,
Exactly. And
right?
kicked you as it went by.
Right. Did you see that cow escape thing in California the other day? That was a really cool story. And I was like, you know what? That cow deserves her freedom, by God, and she's going to be a book and a movie someday, I swear. Hey, Frank, this is awesome chatting with you. It's nice to actually be able to see your face while we do it. That's kind of different for me. I'm not used to that. And I apologize for you having to look at mine. That's just the breaks. But thank you for doing this. Now, is there anything else on your mind before we wrap up? Because I've gone, I'm sure, way past the 15-minute
I'd
mark.
simply say this, Russell, for all the challenges and problems and struggles we have up here in the nation's capital, you can't lose your hope. You can't lose your faith in the democracy and the republic that we're a part of. We just have to work harder. You can still do things. We just have to work harder. And I would also add this from a personal note. In my position now for 2.5 years of being ranking member of the Science Committee, and before that I was chairman of the Ag Committee. Science Committee is a fun committee. The things that we are doing research-wise, the things we're doing at NASA, the stars, the planets, back to the moon and on to Mars, the things we're doing at the Department of Energy, potentially fusion energy using seawater to make electricity and kick off some hydrogen and oxygen on the side. It's a fun committee. And anytime we can talk about doing good things that are fun and positive, hey, I'm happy. And I still care about ag, and I still care about banking. Absolutely, I do.
Well, you got to be able to eat and pay for the stuff, right? So there
Correct.
you go.
Correct.
Hey, happy birthday to Merca. We're coming up on birthday, I think 246. And it occurred to me today, we're 4 years away from the 250th birthday. And I'm sure there's a word for that. I don't know what it would be, but I remember the bicentennial clearly.
Oh, yes.
I hope I'm still around for that one. It's only a few years away, so I think I'll make it. But enjoy your holiday weekend, sir. I hope you get a chance to get a little bit of a break.
Look forward to our next conversation, Russell.
All right, brother. Thank you. Make sure you thank Megan and Patrick for me. They were very helpful setting all this up.
I will do that.
All right, brother. Stay safe.